Hello, everyone, and welcome to Performance Anxiety's 25th, holy shit, online reading event, the Sonnet Edition. My name is Tom Snarsky, and I'm so excited to be hosting this stellar group of readers tonight. In case you haven't listened in before, Performance Anxiety is an online reading series hosted via Skype, usually on the third Thursday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. At each of our events, we normally feature as many as 10 readers who each have about 5 minutes. Tonight, it'll fortunately for us be a little longer than that, to share a selection of their writing. And tonight, they're especially going to be sharing with us sonnets. Having all these slots every month means we're always looking for folks who'd be interested in reading. So if you are or know a poet or writer who'd be interested in performing their work at a future event, please get in touch with us. We're really excited about our next few events. On Thursday, April 15th, we're going to be hosting an all UK performance anxiety reading with some starting time adjustments for the time difference. And then on May 20th, a month after that, we'll be hosting a book launch extravaganza featuring poets from Ornithopter Press and some other places, some excited performance anxiety returners who have awesome books that are out or coming out. If anything I've said strikes your fancy or you just want to get in touch, please reach out via the Performance Anxiety Twitter account at PerformanceANXT, all one word, or you can DM the co-organizers directly. I'm at Tom Snarsky on Twitter and Instagram, TOMSNARSKY, or you can email me at tomsnarsky@gmail.com, same spelling. You can also get in touch with Kristin Garth, our other co-organizer, who I'll be very excited to introduce as our second reader of the evening. And before I introduce our astoundingly talented first leadoff reader, just a quick note that tonight we are celebrating one of poetry's hardiest modern forms, and that's the sonnet. Our readers tonight have been welcome to share their own original sonnets and/or sonnets by other poets they admire. One of our readers tonight, C.T. Salazar, let me know recently that one thing that made the sonnet so special when it came upon Western literature scene was that it was a poem meant to be read aloud, but to oneself, not as a dramatic public reading, but a sort of intimate private one. And I couldn't be any luckier to be part of the small private publics that our readers are going to cultivate with their sonnets this evening, and I really hope that you enjoy it too. So thank you to all our readers for being here, and I'm really excited to kick it off with one of the most prominent in my mind voices in contemporary formal poetry, and that's Taylor Byas. Taylor Byas is a Black Chicago native currently living in Cincinnati, Ohio. She's now a second-year PhD student and Yates Scholar at the University of Cincinnati and an assistant features editor for The Rumpus. She was the first-place winner of both the Poetry Superhighway and the Frontier Poetry Award for New Poets contests. Her chapbook, Bloodworm, is forthcoming from Variant Lit this summer. Thank you, Taylor, for being everything you are and for being here tonight.
Well, thank you, Tom, for that introduction. And thank you so much for having me and for everyone else whose sonnets I get to hear tonight. I'm really excited. So I think we all like settled on 4 sonnets together, which is really exciting. So I'm going to read 4 sonnets, 2 kind of from like much earlier sonnets, and then 2 that are more recent, one that isn't out in the world yet. So I guess I'll kind of do like a little chronological move. So this first sonnet is called Disciplinarian, and it is about my grandfather and just thinking about how discipline has changed throughout the generations. Disciplinarian. In the closet, racked in line for picking, belts molder and shed in leather scabs. In hand, they crack like reins. On their legs and backs, the brand of a coachman shows itself as the tallied welts my grandfather counted out. Every pelt is really punctuation, pauses that land between the beats. I ain't gonna tell you again. My mother got it worse than I did, felt the uncoiling of strap and breath at once, the hissed release of pain between her father's teeth. And this was love, to mark his words on skin. Now those reluctant joints retire, yet his body commits the motion to memory as he swats a fly and kills it, yanks the weeds outside again. Okay, this next one is about my grandmother. I didn't realize how much I wrote about my grandparents when I used to write formal poetry. So this sonnet is called When the Air Conditioning Breaks. We discover homegrown auto-tune, and yawp our vaselined lips mere inches from the box fan's lattice. The flowered blades compute and swap our breaths for robot, monotone. When our friends sardine the porch and ask, "Y'all coming out?" We let the screen door boomerang back to chop the wooden frame, our dizzy laughter cutting out our grandmother's kitchen edict. Close that door and stop letting my air out this house. All bark, no bite. When we return, our shadows race the sunset back to the earth. Inside, we doff our white tank tops and blue jean shorts, our naked silhouettes like trophies welded in summer's afterburn, hot metal cooling to things for her to love, to spurn. Okay. This next sonnet was sort of like a heartbreak sonnet. It was written kind of in the aftermath of like trying to pick yourself up from a tough time, tough relationship. So this one is "A Cut Foot Teaches Kindness." I cradle my foot like an infant's in my grip, a red-lipped kisser daggered into its soul, and glass still rooted in flesh, a crystal wing tip to tweeze loose, gently, slowly. It makes a hole too deep to dam with pressure, my t-shirt's hem pressed to the wound, a poor man's gauze soaked through. Last week, I called my mother on a whim and asked her how she dealt with loneliness. You learn to take care of yourself, become your own Prince Charming. So I extract the shard like a lover might, ask myself, does it hurt? You all right? Along the way. I'd kiss it if I could reach. I'd cover it with my lips and say, there. If healing was as easy as this, I could get used to the feeling. Okay, and this last one is, I'm pretty sure, the newest sonnet I've written. And sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum of like a heartbreak poem. This is about like being tangled in like an affair with someone. So, and is boringly titled Affair also. Okay, Affair. I behead a leaf with my fingernail. Meiosis of green in my palm because I've forgotten how to hold something. Beheld. Months since I've been a ravine to paddle through. To practice touch, I fold this green like money, like bank for every night you came to my bed like a paying customer. Cheap cologne and a phone that buzzed me wet through your right pocket. Don't name them. The woman, the things that keep my body's bucking your secret. A backseat gift unwrapped again and again across the swish of nylon. If I shrunk myself for this short shrifting, pretzeled my body, flattened, folded, switched positions to accommodate, who's really to blame? I'm only a mangled leaf, halved, and a thirst for rain. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Taylor. That was astounding. And that again was Taylor Byas, who you can find on Twitter at TaylorByas3, TaylorByas3. And Taylor's chapbook, an unmissable event. It's called Blood Warm, and it's forthcoming from Variant Lit this July. It's going to be absolutely fire, and we're very excited to read it. Taylor, thank you so much for being here. So I'm really excited to introduce as our second reader of the evening, the co-organizer of Performance Anxiety, and that's Kristin Garth. Kristin Garth is a Pushcart Riesling-nominated sonneteer and a Best in the Net 2020 finalist. Her sonnets have stocked journals like Glass, Yes, 521, Luna Luna, and more. She's the author of 20 books of poetry, including Candy Cigarette Woman Child Noir from Hedgehog Poetry Press, Flutter Southern Gothic Fever Dream from Twisted Press, and Girlarium from Phomadon Journal. She's the the founder of Pink Plastic House, a tiny journal, and the co-founder, that's right, of Performance Anxiety, this very online poetry reading series. So, Kristin, thanks as always for being here. Thank you for always being the sonnet presence at Performance Anxiety, and especially for being it tonight.
Well, all of my poems tonight are going to be new shit. So I was gonna do something old, but then I decided no, all new. So this is one that just got published this week. That's called Miss Torso, and it's about that character in Rear Window who was one of the first people I ever saw intimated that she was topless when I was young, because I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies and things like that, but I could watch Hitchcock. And anyway, she inspired me to be a topless dancer. So, Miss Torso. You're the first topless dancer I ever see, though it's only suggested a bareback briefly before a window I watch on TV inside a home of faux purity. Rapt attention I pay to all you possess. Stocked Frigidaire, big city address, port-a-bra with turkey leg, wolf's bag, well-dressed, exit upon request. I'm a senior in high school, not allowed to drive. Dance in a bedroom, I'm trying to survive. Emulating moves, improve circumstance of a Hitchcock ballerina who thrives off remunerations a body provides. Must try it someday. You make me decide. And the next one I'm going to read is about, kind of takes place in this little bar I used to hang out in my hometown that doesn't exist anymore, but it had a library. And so that plays into this poem. Dirtiest boys. Dirtiest boys smell of ivory soap. After their rockabilly shows, downstairs will float. Baby faces always give you hope. Surround you inside a library. Share their oral histories of girls in the woods. Finger spines, dust jackets, your plaited hair. Call you Laura Ingalls, believing you're good. Then Wednesday Addams, when other boys share. An atlas of altars where you will kneel. Anatomical charts, how you will feel. Peeled free of this lace, Mary Jane Hills. A borrowable pleasure nobody steals. Whimpers and bookmobiles of misanthropes. Wash off your scent, become more anecdotes. And the next sonnet I'm going to read is called, it's about Army Hammer, and it's dark, and it's called Fine Young Cannibal. How much more power could you even need? Fine, aristocratic celebrity, scion of a billionaire who wants to feed on flesh prepared by glam squads, big cities, inferior filmographies, then his own B-list paychecks. Below the line, no one protects. Directs to best business managers, publicists to bury worst headlines. Discreet elite physicians assigned. One who you would ask to remove lower ribs from one of them to barbecue. Call it love to amputate a toe, a piece of them to keep in pocket, so you always know you could devour a Michelangelo. And the last one I'm going to read is a poem that I wrote based on a tweet that I wrote last week. And so it was based on a picture of a tree that I keep in my room, and then it just turned into a whole thing. So anyway, it's called Little Trees. It's not enough that I live in the woods. I need little trees inside. Living rooms, behind a chest wall. Arbor of girlhood, I hide. My arteries bear fair, unbloomed leaves, irrigated with tears held within. Its silvered bark you mistake in the dark for something other than weathered skin. All you see is the muck-covered roots, stark signs of the grove interminably green. I hid it young from everyone because of the desecration it's seen. The savagery and spoils of the hunt. Last blade of an axe bade me underground. These little trees remind you I'm still around. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristin. That again was Kristin Garth. Our sonnet, are just all constant sonnet presence and performance anxiety. So it's super important and crucial that you got to share those. I'm going to do something that I hope is not super weird because I have a note on my phone. It's just all like quotes and things. And when Kristin told me that she had a sonnet that came from a tweet, I remembered that one of the quotes on my phone is a tweet that Kristin made like years ago. So I hope this isn't super weird, but it says, I've had 2 people telling me to write books today, and I can't even finish a 14-line poem I want to write so bad because of physical moving and technological moving. My life is too complicated for more than micropoetry. And I've thought of that forever since you've said it. Like, I love that. And I love that your micropoems are here with us tonight. And I don't really think a sonnet can count as a micropoem because there's worlds in there. But anyway, neither here nor there. That was Kristin Garth. Please follow her on Twitter at Lola Anjolie, LOLAANDJOLIE, and her website, which is Kristin, KRISTIN, Garth, GARTH.com, because that's the best way to keep track of all the awesome stuff that Kristin's doing. I know there's like an anthology that she's edited on Eyes Wide Shut that's coming out soon from Daily Drunk and all this other stuff. Yeah, so keep in mind that that is happening. Cool. Wow. Okay. So I'm very excited to keep our reading order moving right along and to introduce a reader new to me, but someone whose poems I'm very excited to read, and that is Caliche Fields. Caliche Fields lives upon the prehistoric ruins of the Permian Basin. An MA candidate specializing in the poetry of Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, they're rooted in interdisciplinary natures, and their work dwells within the kitchen, its sciences and philosophies. Thank you, Caliche, for being here with us tonight. I'm really excited to hear your work. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So imposter syndrome got me. But I've been focusing on my thesis a lot, and so I wanted to share some poems and sonnets that inspire me, and then I'll end with a sonnet that I've written last week. So I wanted to start with Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, my favorite sonnet of hers. It's in Spanish, so bear with me. Quéjase de la suerte. Insinúa su aversión a los vicios y justifica su desentendimiento a las musas. En perseguirme, mundo, ¿qué interesas? ¿En qué te ofendo cuando solo intento poner mis bellezas en mi entendimiento y no mi entendimiento en las bellezas? Yo no estimo tesoros ni riquezas, y así siempre me causa más contento poner riquezas en mi entendimiento y que no mi entendimiento en las riquezas. Yo no estimo hermosura que vencida es despojo civil de las edades, ni riqueza me agrada fementida, teniendo por mejor en mis verdades consumir vanidades de la vida que consumir la vida en vanidades. Thank you. So I wanted to kind of jump back and forth between English and Spanish. I wrote in English, so but another sonneteer that I really admire is Sylvia Plath, and here is her sonnet to Satan. In dark room of your eye, the moony mind somersaults to counterfeit eclipse. Bright angels black over logic's land under shutter of their handicaps, commanding that the corkscrew comet jet forth ink to pitch the white world down in swiveling flood. You overcast all order's noonday rank and turn God's radiant photograph to shade. Steepling snake in that contrary light invades the dilate lens of Genesis, to print your flaming image and birth spot with characters no cockcrow can deface. O maker of proud planets negative, obscure the scalding sun till no clocks move. So my next one in Spanish is Federico Garcia Lorca. It's his Soneto de la Luz se queja. It's one of his sonetos de oscuridad. Tengo miedo a perder la maravilla de tus ojos de estatua y el acento que me pone de noche en la mejilla, la solitaria rosa de tu aliento. Tengo pena de ser en esta orilla, tronco sin ramas, y lo que más siento es no tener la flor, polvo o arcilla, para el gusano de mi sufrimiento. Si tú eres el tesoro oculto mío, si eres mi cruz y mi dolor mojado, si soy el perro de tu señorío, no me dejes perder lo que he ganado, y decor las aguas de tu río con hojas de mi otoño enajenado. So this sonnet's mine. I wrote it last week, like brand new, fresh, hot off the oven. On transference between celestial bodies. Do incense tones balance, conserve? In starlight, pulling my curls taut as bowstring, I have found you hunting amongst corn, mine arrowhead supported and released by callous, rough hands as they caress transitory fly-by-nights. I eye supple satellites dimly and ask, what fertile fields offer solace to you, drunken, inebriated, faded into earth? The qualms of bellicose sorrow were rooted upon peaks and valleys by the ancients, teaching that coolly placed warriors could be soothed, sowed through pruning. A moment to diminish, veils and twilights. Orion, wanderer, beloved prick and cinch. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caliche. That was so incredible, and like the caliber of sonnet that got brought there is just like stops me in my tracks. Wow, yeah, that was amazing, and thank you so much for making a multilingual space of tonight's reading. I think that's super duper important, and it's so awesome to have heard your readings of Sor Juana and Lorca, and it was just awesome. And that again was Caliche Fields, who is a regular at Daily Drunk Magazine, and who you can find on Twitter at Caliche Fields, CALICHEFIELDS. And yeah, just awesome stuff, Caliche. We hope that we'll have you back on Performance Anxiety, so there will be more original new shit that we will hear in addition to those incredible readings. That was just beautiful. So someone I'm very excited to introduce next in our reading order as we round out the first half is Samuel J. Fox. And Samuel J. Fox is an essayist and poet living in the southern U.S. He's a poetry editor at Bending Genres and has been published in numerous online and print journals. And I'm very excited, Sam, to hear your sonnets. Thanks for bringing them tonight.
Thank you for having me, guys. So this is not really new shit. This is old shit. So old, in fact, it's ancient, because I haven't written a sonnet in a long time. But this was a project I worked on when it's back in 2014, and it's about mental health. It's about a stint I had in a hospital and how I survived it. And this is an example of that. What got me through. It's called "Reading Leaves of Grass" in room 311. The bookshelf held it like a secret, shoved behind several other books that were torn like diaries in a war zone. Poems, beloved timelessly, tended like bubonic sores, whispered in the corner. I stole it. Still cherish it today. I recall hours spent doing nothing but discovering all the wisdom I failed from doctors hell-bent on balance, on glucose-covered horse pills, either given or force-fed down a throat to receive. Whitman, you were my only friend when the razor scraped, when death held the end out like a wilted bouquet. My tears flowed when you said, I know nothing else but miracles. And then this is another one of those sonnets from that time period. It's a apostrophe to the sun. It's just titled Talking to the Sun. Nuclear friend, harbinger of morning, what good will it do me to lay prostrate, watching my scars recede? I walk inside the house of mourning. I read my Whitman, pouring myself like an urn of ash into words, a gray ink gospel. I wear the patient blouse, a shade of sackcloth. Sun, burn me instead. Cremate my irises so that I may look inward and see only my electric soul. Take all my thoughts. Knead them like dough, bake them like bread. This skin is not plagued, but my brain is wrought with whispers not mine. Let me fade like shadow into twilight rouge. I now know Job, what he felt, christened darkly like a crow. Thank you guys. They're so old it's not funny. This next sonnet I've been trying to get published somewhere, and it's more of a genre bending thing, because you know me, I kind of like to do that. This is a sonnet, parentheses, made completely of discarded fragments from failed love poems. So they're all from failed love poems I've written, and I turn them into a sonnet. I shape my sorrows into origami wasps, and my fingers still feel the sting of folding. Sadness is less an ache than a hollowing, a wishing well drained to collect every coin. I've learned I feel it beneath my sternum and rub until I braise my collarbone vermilion. It doesn't always need be this bitter, the memory of lips, the way ex-lovers taste. I can make other exits, take time to enter yet another mouth shaped like a salted wound. I can fold this gauze into a stallion, make it gallop away stained dull crimson. You know, I never imagined love to look like this. I thought it would be more swan wings than loss. And then this last one, I wish I could justify it as a sonnet. It's essentially 4 quatrains, but it rhymes like a sonnet, so I'm going to try to pass it off as a sonnet. I could try to get some way to cut it, but I haven't found a way yet. This poem is titled End of Summer Song, parentheses, I can list several reasons why you should be elsewhere right now, which is a Fall Out Boy song. And it's from the song You've Got a Dark Alley and a Bad Idea that says you should shut your mouth, which I've also quoted as Pete Wentz. End of Summer Song. My Mac has been breaking from this heavy heart, for it is almost October, and everyone I know lifts up the filter of a cigarette or the bottom of a bottle. The ash littering this town looks a lot like blow if you slant your head and cough up enough blood. 2 more friends found dead 10 years after high school and more in rehab. We called it summer and moved on. But here am I, Lord, trying my best at renewal, trying my best to remember the body fails anyway. In this town, The leaves fall softer than apology. Too many of my friends pop pills or beer tops, and way too many earn their photo next to apathy in the devil's dictionary. What I've always wanted, out of school, of the closet, of this town filled with lies. But God damn it, I can't leave. It's as if I haunt the ones I love, who are all faded as the light around me dies. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sam, for those incredible poems. Sonnet or almost sonnet or anti-sonnet or whatever they were. I feel like CT and I were just like trading like mind-blown faces for, several minutes during that period. And that was great. That was Samuel J. Fox, who you can find on Twitter and Instagram at Samuel J. Fox, SamuelJFox. And if, like Sam, you like bending genres, Sam is the poetry editor at bendinggenres.com. Check that out and send Sam some work when they're open for submissions. Cool. That was Sam, and we're already in our back half of the order, and the world is flying by, sonnets are happening. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm very glad to inaugurate the back half of this order with another performance anxiety returner, and that is Hannah Lamb Vines. Hannah is writing a novel about a poet who inexplicably births a sheepdog. Her published is up at neutralspaces.co/lambvines, LAMBVINES. Check out Hannah's work, but here's some of it right now. Thanks for being back with us, Hannah.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's such an honor to read my poems with you. I'm so happy I get to hear all of these live. So the first one I'm reading is a poem I wrote about writing a poem about leaving New York to move to California. I wrote it about a year. I wrote this poem a year after I wrote the first one. Sonnet reflecting on formlessness. All of these are also anti-sonnets. They're not like super sonnet-y. Thanks for setting that trend up, Sam. Sonnet reflecting on formlessness. Stoop sat with a black dog, broken heart, cigarette, screaming a poem about nothing, kind of like this one. Something like howling, about howling, or about the need to howl. You think poetry, and poetry thinks you back. Obsession, like any curse, but for a digression. Half-smoked dog sits, sniffs, smells like you're leaving. Salt licks left red rashes under eyes, ashed off city steps, tail wagging. No stars, but maybe moonshine. You forget how fast you forget a fire, escape, a license plate, numb, or the difference in bray and how. Glow goes out, nothing left to suck, say, or stay. This next one is a poem about not knowing what to do with your hands, and it came out in Per Happen for their Lovers issue. It's called What Are My Hands When They're Not Holding You? Rotary phones, my hands are honeybee hives, my hands are test tubes and beakers, my hands are brittle-boned birds, my hands are sucking helium, my hands are not casting spells, my hands are out chewing mint, my hands are running through somebody's hair, my hands are catcher's mitted, my hands are kitten mitten, my hands are carpal tunnel, my hands are tied behind my back, my hands are all fingernail, all flesh, no muscle, useless. And these last two are from the perspective of the main character of my work in progress. So they're poems that the poet wrote. Riding the musical express at the county fair. True, you could be anyone. My eyes slide through the ages, hit it, obsession. Hit me, baby, one more. We argue over meaning. I say phone call. You say fucking. Not you, the other you. Who was that? Did we walk or drive? You blur into yourself. Call it avoidance. Then there were the lies. I thought you didn't notice. Not you or you. Revolving doors, carousel, gravitron. Call it projection. My loneliness is killing. Believe me, I'm aware. The constant, call it fulcrum. Yeah, what it all revolves around. What does this have to do with Brittany? Nothing. It's all about me. And the last one is everything I do is to distract myself from you. Red denim, make me nervous. This is how the day goes in a place that don't exist. Ask for a map or a clean plate. I eat skin crisps, salivate, sweep the ashy porch. I don't want to plaster myself to you. Sheer and strung up on bobbins, cactus juice, mushroom powder, wheatgrass and ceramic. Am I making you nervous? Doors don't lock unless they want to. They never need to. Ask for a map, an empty bottle. I only want to glue my mouth to yours. Ask for a glass of water. Little bullets of want shooting from my eyes. You never nervous target. You wolf-eyed lion. You always locked door, not mine. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for your poems and for singing at Performance Anxiety, which is like the bravest thing anyone can do in my humblest of opinions. That was great. The Brittany love in the chat is real. I am very excited to get to have been in this space with those poems. That, again, was Hannah Lamb Vines, who you can find on Instagram and Twitter at Embarrassed Forever, EMBARRASSED, number 4 EVR. Hannah also manages and edits Three Moon Magazine, which is at number 3 MOONMAGAZINE. And also, Hannah told us on the forum that her favorite sonnets are Olena Kalediak Davis's sonnets, which inspired her to work with the forum. Hard to pick just one as a favorite, but it's really cool to know that there's a lineage there. And we're really excited, Hannah, for your novel. I know that I want to read the poems in it and the novel in it. Wow, okay. I'm always overwhelmed at this stage in the reading. I never make it without like jitters until, our whatever number of readers that we have. And the next reader is someone who's I'm deeply, deeply excited to introduce, not only as a sonneteer, but as a friend and as just a person who thinks about poetry with such generosity, and that is C.T. Salazar. C.T. Salazar is a Latinx poet and librarian from Mississippi. His debut full-length collection, Headless John the Baptist Hitchhiking, is forthcoming from Acre Books in 2022, not soon enough. He's the author of 3 chapbooks and the 2020 recipient of the Mississippi Institute of Arts and Letters Award in Poetry. Beautiful job, CT. I know that you're going to read some amazing stuff tonight. Take it away.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. Shout out to Tom for being the generous reader that none of us deserve ever. So these are all fairly new. I've got to get my cat off the table, sorry. I've been writing a sequence of sonnets that try to reimagine Mississippi as a place where nobody dies lonely. So these are all 4 from that sequence. So they're all called 4 Snakes Makes Our Flag. I'm still learning this language. Forgive me. Which part of speech is horsepower? I feel so diamondback in these heels, so switchblade this weather, so double-barreled and barefooted your charm, like a peppering of sparrows at dusk. Does this make sense? Maybe you want to dig for treasure, and maybe I just want to be buried. Either way, we need a shovel. But the only thing here are bedraggled bodies. King James Lee, the sun behind us. Come, cloud-soaked rapture, lest we forget. At the end of his wick, Abraham must have felt like a bottle rocket, chased by the flame of the Lord. 4 Snakes Makes Our Flag. Embellish this if you must, but don't leave out the way the weather vane twirled like a boy in love. You were all carpenter, so deep into dusk, the brightest thing, your halo of gnats, their golden wings glittering, my God. This is what it means to love you here in weedful inheritance. Beside the heavy muscadines, no one can have you. Even in the eve sweet hour when the horizon it's doing its best to be further away and the field letting loose its last blue-dubbed Madonnas. Asters open. Aches congratulate each other like wind chimes. It's getting dark, and barefoot we tiptoe the light broken like shards of terracotta. Four snakes makes our flag. The floorboards creak and I love you. I wrap myself in your hands and it's all sheet music how the mosquitoes bob up and down. And it's all one way or another, life ending. We pulled another man from the river today and the river gasped. Not like how you'd imagine, but like this, with theatrics. Maybe there's no way around it. Not the river, but this buckling weight. Grief, the thickest thicket I can think of, where every hymn rattles in its muffler, and you and I leave the car, windows down, doors swaying. We'll be back when we've learned something about time and the God who thought it was a gift. And this is the last one. Four snakes makes our flag. Copperhead quiet. Then, with the world gone blue, blooming hot, full with hickory dark, bulls breathing, your shirt sticking to your back, there's a world humming so close to this one, so psalm it leaves us, leaves, crunching under the heels of wedding dress boys, and stars don't shine this low, those are silver fish hooks tangled in the branches. Hush now, our aunts would say, but the dirt is brimming lovely jewels. Call them beetles while we're alive. Still lipsticked, you looked in the garden, gasped at the pepper curling like a ram's horn. And when I held you, your carbon made my blood remember its solid state. Roses. Thank you, guys.
Oh my God, I had to dig the unmute button out from under like 1,000 piles of tears and rose petals and amazing things. That was C.T. Salazar reading Four Snakes Makes Our Flag poems. And wow, those are just beautiful. I love those poems so much. That was beautiful. I have no other words for it. Me and Caliche, I think we're both just like doing our face like this for most of it. And I am okay with that. C.T. Salazar has a full-length collection of poems called Headless John the Baptist Hitchhiking. It's coming out from Acre Books in 2022. Mark your calendars. Just mark it from January 1, 2022 to December 31, 2022. You'll see it somewhere there, in there. Yeah, wow. I hate to be already at our last two readers of the evening, but I am very excited to continue this beautiful sonnet train as it is doing its thing, and I'm mixing my metaphors. But this is, and I'm very excited to introduce Becca Carson. Becca Carson is an ex-roller derby girl turned high school English teacher, high school teachers represent, foster mom turned mom, and poet who can't seem to turn into anything else. She produces 2 literary magazines annually with her high school students. High school literary magazine editor representation. And when she isn't writing or teaching, likes to explore with her kids and her Great Dane, Marla Singer. You can find her work in Kajibi and Juxtaprose or buy her book, Flight Path. Thank you, Becca, for being with us. Thanks for your patience. Take it away.
So I've never done a Skype reading before, and I can't see myself like I can on Zoom, and it's kind of nice because I can see everybody else instead. I had to switch it to grid view because it kept kicking me off the call. I don't know if you noticed, but I was like a ghost popping in and out for a second there. So the first sonnet that I'm going to read, I have to look sideways because I'm doing this on my phone and my computer at the same time. It's a little distracting. The first sonnet I'm going to read, I'm channeling Sherman Alexie a little bit, who basically just gives the middle finger to sonnets and numbers 1 through 14 and writes whatever the hell he wants on lines numbered 1 through 14. So that's what I always give high school kids when they insist they can't write a sonnet. I'm like, but you can cheat. So here's my alternate ways to say goodbye, a sonnet. 1. Aquatic plants, 2 red, feather our necks long distance, 2. And that's why you go straight to voicemail, 3. Phone line like Christmas lights, 4. Or maybe little kid red, don't forget me, string tied to index finger that once turned knuckle side to brush my cheek, 5. That time I said I wasn't crying about leaving, 6. Is this all that connects us? Phone line and solar plexus. 7. We both made promises that grew from our silence. 8. Imagine a house we built together with our hands. 9. Built on sand. 10. I know we are both thinking of the Polaroid I sent of the skull I found crumbling after snow melt, but you won't say it. 11. So don't say anything. Stomach full of hard purple berries like swallowed gems. 12. Which ones are the vital organs? Does a voice box count because mine is broken? 13. Goodbye looks like 13 yellow birds. 14. Blurred yellow birds. The anti-sonnet. Okay. So I just finished my second book and I put that one in there. My second book is going to find a home. I'm manifesting this so that it will find its home. It's called Blood Orange, tentatively. Okay. My second sonnet is the one that I have published in Juxtaprose. And I did this thing where I went back through my high school notebooks, actually, in early college. And I looked at what I wrote and was like, But then I made this challenge to myself that I had to turn that material into form poems. So if you've saved your old stuff, you got to try this, because really weird things happen when you take stuff that you wrote like over 10 years ago and you make yourself turn it into a form poem. And if you're like, well, I have to mine this. Yes, you do. So this is what I did when I mined my old notebooks from early college, late high school. It's called Homestake Pass. Last night, when I asked how many pills and you silenced me with a sad kiss, I knew I'd head west and leave you sleeping before sharp Sunday morning rays lacerated Story Mill. Bruised purple dawn slides down the shoulders of Rocky Mountains, and soon rose fire will splinter my rearview window. Glittering ice clings to tired fence line, and miles behind me, a few starlings drift like ash between concrete silos veiled with frosted spray paint. Your blue bandana on the dash smells like wood stove and camels and turpentine. Above the landfill, a burst of wind tosses a torn plastic grocery bag skyward, and it grows wings and hovers until it ends up ensnared in twisted snarls of barbed wire, thrashing. I don't need to turn back to watch silvered wind reduce it to shreds. These things take time. I already know you'll erase the graphite shape of my body and still life. This is the last blue ink napkin poem I'll write for you, a reluctant ode to thick snow and blinking strands of colored light softening your face. The last time you said this was over. My tail lights burned for when you slipped off shirts stained red, thin arms crossed over your head like the limbs of moonlit aspens. Love, I will never shred myself down to blue ink bled for a girl like you again. All right. This one is also old stuff that I pushed into a sonnet. It's called Rehab. Deer-eyed dancer girl in AM geometry has a chemical burn the shape of a kiss. I live off coffee and bury myself in blank pages and camel lights. October. I anticipate the sweet 9 a.m. juniper wisps of last night's Jen hangover clinging to her jacket. Beautiful and unhinged, together we grow into this. February. Her dizzy eye sparkle is jewelry belonging to my memory, and my bones are now only paper clips holding my clothes on. I am pretty and disillusioned in my cocaine haze until 6 months later when I see blood in the bottom of the shower and ask, why am I still waiting for a miracle? That Christ couldn't save me, so I saved myself somehow. 2 years later, in rehab, her nails are as fragile as rice paper, and she sways slightly in her spike heels. She used to be a dancer, but now she's just vapor, as smooth and poisonous as her parliament. It's getting harder to breathe, just searching for a ballerina in those granite eyes. I used to like her cold silver touch, the soft burn of her freckled hand on my warm sleeping skin. I see now this is all a myth. Her eye sparkle was always only dust. Okay. My last one, we'll have to call it like a sonnet slam. So I don't really know if that's a thing, but I guess it kind of is now. And no hard feelings, my Instagram poet friend here, but are you familiar with the Instagram poet Atticus? He's got like a couple books. They're like at the Barnes and Noble poetry section. Yeah. So because his poems are so tiny that they have to fit in an Instagram square, they make really great titles for my sonnets. So I like borrowing his poem as like a giant, pretentious, long title and then writing a poem in response to that. I don't really have anything against Atticus, but this one kind of jabs at him a little bit because some of his poems, they rub me the wrong way as far as how they treat females, or how they look at like a male figure as like this shining knight in armor to come in and save everything in a female's life. And so I guess I just read an Atticus poem on the wrong day or something, but this is an exercise I give my students as well, where we look for Instagram poets and we use their entire poem as our title. But yes, Sonnet Slam, here it is. This is probably the closest form-wise too, of course, to a sonnet naturally. Okay. So this first line is his. He had those kind of eyes that shone with everything will be okay. But shining eyes meant crying or cats, and she was allergic to those, so she waited like, yes, whatever, hoping that those shiny eyes would close. But he cradled her like a bushfire koala, singed and helpless as if she must stay. This boy hero is the only one who can save her with poems, as you've certainly heard. But this wasn't the first time a Peter Pan boy dressed up as a man had become a cliche too close to her face, desperate mouth of baby birds screeching, validate me, like anyone whose identity is famous on Instagram. He had the kind of whimper he fancied a semper, a lecherous grin he called a smile. This kind of whimper, put much simpler, was neither sexy or suave, just a whine. He watched her from afar and imagined how romantic he'd sound telling her to stay a while, so he could capture her like this, sad and helpless and beautiful. You'll be just fine, he whispered, staring until his eyes watered. This poem ends when he brushes her cheek, but before he can post his new masterpiece, she stands up laughing. I already am, you creep. All right. Those are my 4. Thanks for letting me read. This was fun.
Thank you so much, Becca. Sorry, I was trying to unmute through the chat blowing up in solidarity with that last poem. That was, again, Becca Carson, who is on Twitter at Becca Carson MT, BeccaCarson MT, on Instagram at Flight Path Poems or at Fabulous Life of Bam. Becca also has an Etsy shop, Somnambulist Designs, so Somnambulist Designs, all one word, where they sell one kind of collaged comp notebooks, but you can also find the last 7 copies of Becca's first book for sale there, along with some weird and slightly hideous homemade stuffed animals. Becca shared with us that her favorite sonnet is so many good ones to choose from. River Sonnet by Caliche Fields is good, and maybe Sherman Alexi's Sonnet with Venom, which inspired some of the work you heard here tonight. Thank you, Becca, for being here, and thanks for all you do for your students. High school lit mags are where it's at, I believe. With always a little bit of chagrin, we come to our last reader of the evening, but it's someone whose poems I'm deeply excited to hear. Leading us off to the end of the lineup is David Rosenthal. And David Rosenthal of Berkeley, California, teaches in the Oakland Public Schools that teacher representation is so strong tonight. His poems have appeared in Measure Review, Teachers and Writers, Birmingham Poetry Review, Rising Phoenix Review, and many others. He's been a Nemerov Sonnet Award finalist and Pushcart nominee. He's the author of The Wild Geography of Misplaced Things. Thank you, David, so much for being with us tonight and for bringing your sonnets with you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to start by being the guy who says, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be a part of this, and I'm a little daunted after so much wonderful poetry. I'm worried that I can do justice to to bring it to a close, but I'll try. My sonnets are super sonnety, very formal. So we'll have that represented here. I'll start with this is the first poem in the book that was out a long time ago, 8 years ago. It's the title of the book is The Wild Geography of Misplaced Things, and that's a line in this poem. The poem is called Piles of Things. I don't put things away where they belong. I set them down on tabletops and shelves where piles accumulate. The piles themselves are missing items put back in the wrong collection, redistributed among the wild geography of misplaced things that forms around me in concentric rings of monuments to what does not belong. And just beyond these monumental rings, there is another ring of vacant places, longing to greet the repatriated faces of all the never quite forgotten things that once conformed exactly to the spaces settled now by dust and fading traces. The second one is just a good old-fashioned Petrarchan love sonnet, who was also in the book. It's called Braille. Tracing the trail that wraps around your waist and slips behind your hips and down your thighs, I dwell on words my worn, myopic eyes are all too blind to read when daily faced with all the world's distractions, dash, and haste. And just as silence amplifies your sighs, the darkness here, wherein your body lies, makes legible a language light erase. I scan from left to right and back again. The meter flows each way along your skin, as long as I just let the letters lead. Not far from us, the cold, discordant din continues at accelerating speed, but I am deafened by the words I read. This was the newest poem I have. I'm slow and unprolific, so new for me is like a year old or something. So it's old new shit, I guess. And I don't know. I live in the Bay Area here in California, and I don't know if this is something that's happened in other places that you've noticed this where you are in different parts of the country, but in the last few years, there's been like this proliferation of crows around here. It's kind of strange. And so that inspired this. This is called Crossing Under Crows. The crows don't love this city any more than he does, but they're weary of it less than he is. Their indifferent happiness adapts more readily to what's in store than his contingent comfort does. Before so much was ruled by time, routine, and stress, he thrilled to navigate this wilderness. But now, it's just a never-ending chore that starts again each morning on the way to work, when he stops by the old cafe and has to cross beneath the unflapped crows who stain the crosswalk from the lines where they are gathered in the dark to greet the day. He serpentines across on tippy toes. And the last poem I'll read was published just about a year ago. It was in Measure Review last March, right before the world changed. It was inspired by a quote I heard on the radio from a short story by David Eagleman called Metamorphosis from his collection, Some 40 Tales of the Afterlives. And here's the quote. There are 3 deaths. The first is when the body ceases to function. The second is when the body is consigned to the grave. The third is that moment sometime in the future when your name is spoken for the last time. So this poem is called To the Person Who Will Be the Last to Speak My Name. You'll come across it in some database, an arcane list, an ancient family tree, a ghost town on the edge of cyberspace, where signs decay and landmarks atrophy. Already, several decades will have passed since someone said it, thinking of a hymn and how he lived. Now you will be the last before my name becomes a homonym. I have no grand instructions to convey. Your breathy, puzzled mumble will be fine. We all have ways to say the things we say, and I'm content to have your way be mine. Take care as much or little as you will. Just hold the silence after till I'm still. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, David, for that poem, for those poems, and for being with us this evening. That was David Rosenthal, who you can find on Twitter at David Rosenthal, DavidRosenthal _. And David's website is davidrosenthal.weebly.com. And David has many, many favorite sonnets, but he wanted to just give some limelight to Reuben Bright by Edwin Arlington Robinson, a mainstay and a necessity. So thank you again, David, and for everything. Yeah, wow. So we always get to the end, and it's always a little bit sad. This is a slightly indulgent end, so thank you for bearing with me on this. Thank you so much to all of our readers so far for sharing their incredible work with us this evening. Thank you, too, to our listeners for giving this hour of your lives over to poetry. I hope if you're listening, you might consider dropping us a line at Performance Anxiety, Performance ANXT on Twitter, or at my email, which is tomsnarski@gmail.com, if you'd ever like to share your work at a future event. Our next reading is going to be April 15th at 9 p.m. British summertime, because we'll be hosting all UK poets for the first time in Performance Anxiety history. Excuse me. If you're not on one of the British Isles, we also still have slots open for our May reading, which is going to be a launch extravaganza celebrating a bunch of new poetry books, John Leo's, a bunch of books from Ornithopter Press, and elsewhere. So it's going to be rad as heck. I'm definitely going to be reading, so I'm excited about it. And you get to be indulgent when you have a sonnet reading. So I'm going to read, like any good sonnet, I think you want that closing couplet thing. So I'm going to read two quick sonnets to wrap us up tonight. One I tried to do, and then one is by one of my favorite poets of all time, which is Noel Cowcott. So this poem is called, when I get to it, Love Poem with No Words. And the best part about bookmarks is when they fall out. That makes the book more powerful. Ooh. This better be worth it, Tom. Jeez. Love Poem with No Words. This poem happens in an actual lake. There are no words in it, only things burnt out of their ordering, like a bright yellow prism of sunlight, or maybe a pearl. Things with no human form. Things that say sorry when they don't have to, like water, or maybe a used airbag. The foremost criminal in my life is me, and the foremost healer in my life is indisputably you. We're in the lake together, and it's raining. The airbag full of pearls has sunk to the bottom. The sun is almost here. I was really happy to hear Sam's sun sonnet from earlier, and I still think about that phrase, nuclear friend, that started it. And to end, this is the book, the chapbook by Noel Cowcott from Clinic, I think. The book that I was holding when I met my wife in a coffee shop in Burlington, Massachusetts. So it has great power, even greater than the book that lost the bookmark. And this sonnet is called Happiness. Our ancestors in the earth are not ashamed of us. The strong smell of dirt, the delirious rabbits, the clocks are all disappearing. A prehistoric gift acquires the smell of the salt. I grasp onto winter's tail. Some water plants are lying around. Smell and taste, I have had good luck in love. The slippery roads, the capricious numbers on a blazing road, meet me at the forest's edge where we can go with our legs lopped off, strangers to the clean teeth and tongue of outward happiness.